and welcome to CCM Discovery. As you know, this is your go-to spot for uncovering today's freshest voices in Christian music, inspiring authors, comedians, the movers and shakers that are shaping the industry that we love. We'll also be rediscovering the classic artists who built the very foundation of contemporary Christian music as we know it today. I get to be your host. I'm Roger St. James, a former Christian radio DJ. Back in the old, well, what we like to refer to as the golden age of contemporary Christian music. I'm here to guide you through the stories, sounds, and people behind the music that we love. Whether you're a longtime fan or just starting your musical journey, let's get ready to dive deep into the hearts, spirit, and inspirational voices of the contemporary Christian artists. So let's discover together.
Hey man, we did this cover of Curtis Mayfield's People Get Ready.
And that is Sam from the Normandies playing a song that is probably one of the first songs I heard growing up as a child of a legitimate hippie. My mother used to play that type of music growing up, and it started my love of music. So let's introduce and bring in Sam from the Normandies.
Hey, Roger, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Sam. Thank you. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I really appreciate what you're doing with CCM Discovery. It's very cool, man.
I appreciate that. Thank you. It's a gift. It's one of those things where, when we first started talking about it, it was kind of like, I don't know if we, the story behind it and all that. But then once it started to happen, and once God actually kind of forced me to do it by putting all these amazing people in my way that were willing to help. It's just been such a gift getting to meet so many amazing artists and talent and writers and singers and comedians. And it's just fantastic. But I always like to start here. I want to give you some time here to brag on your wife and your children, because those are some of the greatest gifts we are given. And you are free to rant on about how wonderful they are.
Oh, man. I don't think you have enough time. That's we're gonna run. So no, I have a wife of almost 14 years now. We've been together for 20. She is an attorney by trade. She for 5 years was the chief magistrate of the 36th District Court, which is one of the busiest district courts in the country. She left there and is currently now the chief privacy officer of the state of Michigan. So she's the top data privacy official for the entire state. She is amazing. She's also, I like to call her an organizational genius. She's also currently planning my younger sister's wedding at the moment, and she has and flow charts and she kind of stuff. She is truly a genius, and also white, beautiful, and my best friend. And so I could go on and on about her forever. But she is a very special and unique woman of God and individual, and she's in the process of learning how to be a pastor's wife. She teaches in a master's program. I mean, she's just amazing, truly amazing. So, and then I got a 10-year-old and 6-year-old boys, and we just had my 10-year-old student conferences today, and I mean, that dude is just like, you couldn't, I guess the teacher was told to videotape one of the conferences so they could use it to break it down. She chose to videotape his because he's just like, he's in 4th grade, but he's doing 8th grade reading, 8th grade math, star of the soccer team, star of the basketball team, everything like that. Plays piano in church. does all the stuff. And then my 6-year-old is basically like kind of a carbon copy of that. He just had, as a 6-year-old, had 22 points in his last basketball game of the 26 that the team scored. And they're go-getters. They're out there. And my 6-year-old just wrote a song. He wrote a song. Like he actually wrote out sheet music.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, I can't read music, but my older son can, and my little one is learning how to. But he wrote out a song in notation and made his old play it, and then he played it, and they both played the same thing. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like you actually did that. And he called it like God is love or something. And it didn't have any lyrics, but I was just like, that's anyway. So I could go on and on and on and on. But yeah, my wife and my kids are truly a blessing and them all day.
And that's one of the things that I really like about doing this. Of course we want to talk about your music. We want to talk about your art. But you don't get to do that without the family support, without the people behind you. And that is we really want to know who Sam is. And that who Sam is a huge part of who Sam's family is. So I appreciate you that. And if you want to keep going, you can. I mean, we don't run on tape anymore. This is all digital. We can go.
Yeah, no, it's I do appreciate that very much, Roger, and I find myself talking about them so much that I'm like, man, am I boring people? Like, I don't want to be that guy that's just like, always bragging about his family.
No, by no means.
Showing
You're proud of
pictures
them.
like of the kids.
Yeah, you're proud
Absolutely.
of them.
Absolutely.
And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. As long as you know when to stop. When everybody starts to say, "Oh, I gotta go,"
Exactly.
then it's time to step
Like, we don't
away.
need to watch another soccer highlight.
But feel free to send me as many as you want. We can stick them into the show here.
I appreciate that.
So you are from Detroit. We made that, and I think you're our first guest from Detroit. So welcome, Detroit. And now for you, how did your path to Christianity, to Jesus, to the love, where did that come from? How did it start?
So my father was an attorney in Connecticut for 10 years. At roughly when I was 6 years old, 6 or 7, he quit. He became a pastor. He went to seminary out in Gordon Conwell out in Massachusetts. And his father was a pastor before him, but he was sick of law, and he felt strongly called to the ministry. He went to his father, and his father was like, if there's anything you can do that will satisfy you besides this, go do it. And he was like, nope. So he went back to school, and then he was an interim pastor for 2 years at a church in Billerica, Massachusetts. And the first church that called him was just north of Detroit in Royal Oak, Michigan. And so we moved out here when I was 7 or 8. I can't remember exactly. And he has been the pastor of that church for almost 40 years now. I think it's at 37. And so I grew up in the church. I grew up as a pastor's kid. I grew up doing all the Sunday schools, the vacation Bible schools, the youth groups, all of that stuff. They say that pastors' kids basically take 2 tracks. There's either the one that they're preaching from the time that they're 5, 6, 7 years old. They're in the pulpit, or they go the complete opposite way, and they're the rebel and whatnot. So I was more of the rebel. By 7th grade, my parents pulled me out of public school and put me into Christian school because I was starting to hang with the wrong crowd and everything. And so that kind of gave me an opportunity to be like the worst kid in the best environment. So my rebellion was, I was definitely rebellious, but I was not doing nearly as bad as a lot of my contemporaries in public school. So it took a lot less to be rebellious at the Christian school that I went to, and so I did that, and then my dream was to play basketball. I was a basketball player, and I didn't have the grades to get into school. That's a long story. I went to college to play basketball and quit immediately. Once I had to get my grades up, then I had to go walk onto the team. I made the team and I quit. I went home and started working at Guitar Center and was like, I'm going to be a guitar player next. And so I picked up a guitar and I started learning that, started hanging out at the bars and the open mics, and I met a couple buddies. I got on stage my first time. I was going to play a solo to some guy's song, and I just bombed. I was horrendous. It was one of the worst experiences of my life, and I was like, I'm never getting on stage again. But I loved music, and I was like, I wonder what else I could do. And so I started thinking about management and like, how can I be involved in music? So when I was 24 years old, I got a good buddy of mine signed to Kid Rock's label, and that ended up getting us signed to Atlantic Records. And then him and I spent about 10 years touring. We opened up shows for Kid Rock and Jamie Johnson, Uncle Cracker, Brantley Gilbert, the band Rehab. We peaked at like 31 on the country charts back in 2011 or 12, I believe. And we had a phenomenal run. I mean, it was just, I say I got to live 30 years in 10 years. And so, working with Kid Rock and all those people, it was a partying lifestyle back then, but I was the responsible one. And so I was able to keep my head above water, but still be kind of in the midst of all the parties and stuff. And so I was the responsible party, and we had an awesome time, and things were cool. I learned a ton about the music industry. I lived in Nashville for a year. I lived in LA for a year. I toured constantly. I did artist management. I did tour management. I did all sorts of stuff. And then we got out of that in 2013, roughly, and I opened a couple of restaurants. And at that point, I fell heavily, heavily into drug addiction. I was off the road. It was right about the time I got married. I did not. I lived my first restaurant was inside of a bar, and so I was in the bars all the time, and so drugs just became a way of life, and it kept me going. I was a cocaine addict, and I was able to work, I was able to party, I was able to do all this stuff. And so for about 5 years, I had these restaurants, and they went great for the first few years, and then I kind of buried them in my addiction. And in 2015, I had my first son, and I was still in the middle of heavy, heavy active addiction. 6 months later, after having my first son, my wife found out about my addiction, and she confronted me about it, and that began the process of turning my life back to Christ. So she didn't leave me. She stood by me, and she was willing to walk with me through that and get me the help that I needed. I didn't end up having to go to rehab. By the grace of God and the help of the Holy Spirit, I was able to get clean and sober and started putting our life back together. One of my main focuses at that point was to get right with God, and I'd always been a Christian, but I had been far from the Lord. I knew that was what I was tethered to. I knew that was my foundation, but I was not living a godly lifestyle by any means. And so I got into the Word, and I got right with him, and really it took probably about 2 years of real serious study, prayer, effort. And then I remember I was driving to church. I think it was like Mother's Day of 2019. And one of the only times I've ever heard the Lord like audibly speak to me, he was like, "We are good. Now it's time to get right with your wife." And I was like, okay. And so we spent the next couple of years really working on our relationship. And I think it was 2000. There's so many tangents here that all kind of come together. But in this time period, in 2019 was when I had my second son. And I was like, I hadn't picked up a guitar in years and years, but I was like, I want my kids to be around music. So I pulled out an old beat up guitar that I had laying around, and I couldn't sing and play at the same time. I just knew a few chords. I'd never written a song, but I had sat in writing rooms all over Nashville. I had experience, I understood what it would look like. And so I started off just playing kind of old timey country gospel songs. And I was like, I just want to learn to be able to sing and play so I can sing and play for my kids. And so I started doing that. I want to say that was 2000, late 2019. 2020 was when COVID hit.
Yeah.
And so then it became a hobby, something to do. And I don't know, halfway through 2020, my father was like, hey, the choir director, the music director at the church, we don't have the choir anymore because of COVID rules and everything. And she needs something, some kind of special music. Would you have any interest in doing one of them songs? And so the first song I ever played was Why Me by Chris Christopherson, which is always one of my favorite country gospel songs. So I started performing a little bit in church, and that kind of like opened up my eyes to, I guess I'm not as awful as I had originally thought I was when I was 18. And so I just kept banging away at it. I kept chopping down the tree. And then I remember it must have been 2021. I was listening to Bobby Bear's Drop Kick Me Jesus Through the Goalposts of Life. And right after that, Buck Owens' Satan's Gotta Get Along Without Me came on. And I was like, man, I could write that song. So I sat down and I wrote my first song, and it was The Devil Can't Catch Me If I'm Chasing Jesus. So that was the first song I ever wrote, and then they just kept coming. I mean, they just kept pouring out of me. And so in this time period, I kind of put a little band together at church, the drummer at church. There was the backup music director who also played the organ and the piano was also like a bass player. She played in like some cover bands and stuff. And so the three of us got together and we just started playing some of these songs. And it was real just like something fun to do. I didn't have any expectations about it. And also at this time, I was also really, really exploring a call to ministry. And so I had felt a calling on my life for a very long time, but I was a Jonah and I ran from it. I mean, I remember being 9, 10 years old and old ladies being like, you're going to be a preacher someday. I'm prophesying. And I was like, no, I'm not. That's my dad's thing. That's my grandpa's thing. I'm not doing it. And so in this time period, I really started exploring that calling to ministry and got into school full time at Moody Bible Institute. And so all of a sudden, like I was a student full time. I had some extra time and I felt the Lord being very much like, I gave you this music industry knowledge and experience for a reason. And I was like, so what do you want me to do? And the thing that just kept coming back to it was build community. Because when I was in secular music, I was a part of this whole songwriter collective. We had like 50 artists involved. Like everybody that made music in Detroit was connected to us somehow or another. And it was this awesome community. And so when I started, like the Lord started pushing me into the music thing and I started really digging into it, I realized there was no community in the Christian music scene in Detroit or the metro area that I could find. There was cliques, like if you played in a worship band at a church, that was like your thing. And like people didn't interface with each other. There wasn't like Christian songwriter nights. There weren't rounds up here. There wasn't a scene for artists. If you weren't a part of a church, then you were just kind of out on your own. And so I got serious about building community and promoting the music and like actually applying the knowledge and experience that I had in the fall of 2023. And so that was when I'd never been on social media before. I had stayed off of it very specifically because when I was touring, I was not living a godly lifestyle, and I didn't want people to track me. I didn't want people to find what I was doing. I was in a different city every night having fun, and I didn't I didn't want to be on social media. I didn't want to publicize it, and so never been on social media. I got on social media. I started tracking down other artists. I just started reaching out to people, asking if they wanted to co-write, finding people in the Detroit area, and it took a good 6 months to really like crack the shell. I feel like Christian artists were not used to people being like, hey, do you want to hang out? Do you want to play a show? Do you want to co-write? Do you want to do any of these things?
Yeah. Do you want to
Because
work together, not compete with each other?
exactly, because in the secular industry, everybody was like, yeah, let's do it. In the Christian industry, nobody would return an email. Nobody would hit a DM back. Nobody would return a call. I was just like, what is going on? And so um, after a while, about 6 months into this, I got connected with a church, a very big church up here called Bethesda. It was like one of the first kind of mega churches in Michigan back in the 80s. And they wanted to do an independent Christian music night. And I was like, I know how to produce shows. I can produce anything from an arena to a 50-person venue. Like we can put on a Christian songwriters night. So I started doing that with them, and we do those quarterly or every 2 months, just depending. Those have been going awesome, and I've been doing those for over a year now. Last November, I turned the basement of my church into a Christian music venue, so that's like 200 cap room. I've had the band Jaron and Eli Gable through, who are both national touring acts, and I'm trying to get other touring acts through, but we host a show at least once a month, a lot of songwriter nights, and so I'm just trying to build community, and it's starting to gain momentum. And so the Normandies are really just kind of a vehicle for building community, and not just among artists, but like I make this music so that I can play a song for somebody, have them connect to the song, either emotionally, spiritually, mentally, and then get off the stage and actually talk to them, actually shake hands, give them a hug, pray with them. Like the real ministry is done one on one, face to face, personally. And so the music is just a vehicle for that. So I just yammered on there for a good
Oh
20
no,
minutes,
no.
but I think that kind of gives you a big kind of picture of the story and how I got into this.
And it was a great story. And we just had the band Jaron on not too long ago. Amazing young women. They are so on fire. In fact,
Yes.
Jaron had to leave our interview early because she had to go with her church group down to do some ministry down in Nashville. You know?
Yeah.
So they
Yep. They're awesome.
and that's
Jade and Jaron are both
oh
super cool.
they were so much fun, and that's why I'm glad. And that your story is phenomenal, and I will definitely circle back to some points you made, but I want to. That's why this show started, because it came to me. God told it to me because I was listening to the conglomerate radio station, and everybody sounded the same. And I remember back when I was on the air in the you know 90s, 2000s, every artist had an individual sound, and that's what drew me in, and that's what drew so many people in. And so that's when I started looking for people to contact on here. I found I wanted people with sounds that not and I love your sound. You refer to yourself as a like a Christian garage rock, and but your sound, it's real. It's I don't think raw is the right word, but you can tell it's coming. You're singing because you want to, and you have a message, and you want people to hear it, and it's coming from a real situation in your life, and your sound is phenomenal, and I just want people to hear more of it, and that's what I think what's going to save Christian music is artists like yourself, artists like the band Sharon, artists like the Man Clan, Bridget Donahoe, people we've had on the show, because you don't need the radio stations anymore. I mean, you don't need the radio companies anymore.
Right.
and we've had a couple of people from local radio stations who are trying to make it work, and they're actually seeing it's coming back. But now it's just, is it going to be back fast enough for us all?
Right.
But it's artists like yourself that I think are really making a huge difference and a huge impact to that goal.
I really appreciate that, Roger. And I have, since I started this, a very specific philosophy about how I have gone about doing this. And I don't think it's a very popular philosophy, but the fact that you appreciate it really gives credence to kind of where I'm coming from. And so I am 100% believer in a unique voice is better than a good voice. And not to say that you can't have a good voice as well, but I, my philosophy on this whole thing, and one of the first shows that I ever did outside of my church, I was talking with this dude from Worship Revolution, Jim Bob Price, awesome dude from North Carolina, and I was like, Jim, man, I don't make worship music. I was like, I make music about my own experiences, and it's me telling other people my story about what Jesus has done. He was like, yeah, man, I get it. You don't make worship music, you make testimony music. And I was like,
There you go.
that's it. That's exactly it. You just hit the nail on the head.
I'm
Jim
writing
Bob.
that down.
Right, exactly. I was like, testimony music. That's what I've been looking for. And so, number one, it's all either my own stories or stories that other people have told me, and like I've written about their stories. And I don't make music to be sung in corporate worship. Not that there aren't some songs that I guess you could pass as that, but this is simply, I was blind, now I see. And like that's the whole premise of the way that I write. So it's very simple. I don't try to church it up. And then the way that I actually make the music from my years in the industry, I spend $125 a track for every song that I do. I don't know anybody who spends less than 1,000.
Yeah, it's
And the reason that I do that is because I want the music to sound as close to live as possible. I don't put in any extra instruments. We play everything in the studio live, and then we overdub everything that we need to in guitars and vocals. But I want you to get the experience of what we would sound like if we were playing right in front of you. I don't have the money to spend thousands on production, and I wouldn't anyways, because that's not the authentic sound. As we have gotten better as a band, as I've gotten better at singing, playing guitar, writing, the music gets better. It has nothing to do with bells and whistles or tricks or anything like that. And so I try to tell people all the time, you don't, like the artists that I have built community with, the young artists that I help, and everybody, I'm like, don't waste money on production. Like it unless you have like a very specific sound that absolutely needs that, like you should be able to play your song, just you and whatever your instrument is. And if you can connect with people like that, just build on top of that, just layer on top of that, because that's going to be the most unique sound, is your story, your voice with your instrument. And so that's my philosophy. And so the fact that you appreciated that and got that, thank you, Roger.
Oh, you're doing it, and that's, I hadn't thought of that, but everything I've listened to you of yours does sound live, and I hadn't put the connection together, and that's one of the biggest things when you talk about overproduction. When somebody comes to see you, and all of a sudden you're like, that's not the guy I listen to. Where's this? How come he's a little flat here? How come he, where's, when I listen to him at home, there's more of a round sound. So I really like that you're explaining that, and you're living it, and your music is maybe raw is the right word. Maybe I was onto something there with that with that word, because everything that I've listened to of yours does sound live, and it's real. Where did,
Thank you.
no, go ahead.
I have no problem with raw. So thank you.
Where did the Normandies name come from?
So, when I started really digging into Christian music, so I never listened to Christian music growing up. I was into, um, I listened to a little bit of everything, but I loved the blues. I did a deep dive as a teenager into like Blind Lemon Jefferson and Robert Johnson and like where the classic rock guys got their inspiration from. But that I'm going too far back really to get that. So I listened to everything growing up, gangster rap, classic rock, 80s rock. And so I didn't listen to Christian music at all. I was completely against it. I thought it was silly. I didn't like contemporary Christian music. I liked hymns because we sang hymns in church, but I was not into Petra or Striker or I guess Skillet's kind of older, but like, I graduated in '99, and so I just wasn't. What were those bands? Reliant
Oh,
K
yeah, Reliant
and the
K.
one with John Foreman. Anyway, so I just wasn't into contemporary Christian music back then. And so when I started digging into it, the first thing that I found was the Enlightened channel on Sirius XM, which is the Gaither channel. And so I was listening to a bunch of stuff, and that, like, I love country, I love bluegrass, I worked in country, any roots style, but I was listening to the Gaither channel, and they had all these bands like the Crabs and who was it, Sherry Easter, anyways, like they had these family bands and they had family names. And so I was like, oh, that's cool. I like the idea of like a family sounding name. And so when we got together and started talking about names, the street that the church is on is Normandy Road. And I was like, the Normandies sounds like it could be a family band. It could be like a proper name. It could be anything really. It's unique enough that it could fall into one of those categories, but it's also like memorable. And if we're the church is on Normandy Road, so I was like, I think this is the perfect name. And so, anyways, that was where it came from. It fit, like it checked all the boxes that I was looking for to find a name that could be connected on a number of different levels and still be like, what is that? And
No,
so
it's one of the first when I first read it, I said, yeah, that's a good band name. It's it sounds like a band's name, with exactly
right,
what with the type of music that you're doing. Real open family. It's a group. We're here to talk about life, and so this is our family. So sit around, pour some coffee. Let's have some fun.
right.
Now, is there any? I mean, you're obviously a very faith-driven man, but is there a particular verse? And I might be putting you on the spot with this, but is there a particular verse that you really hang on to, or do you kind of it changes
Yes.
as you take your walk?
Nope. I have a very specific verse. I am going to pull it up just so I don't, because it's First Samuel 3:10, and it's when Samuel is in the temple. He's sleeping in the temple, and Eli is lying before he's like really had his calling. And so in verse 10, the Lord came and stood calling as at other times, Samuel, Samuel. And Samuel said, speak, for your servant hears. And so that is my life verse. And I butcher it because the first half of it, I kind of always am like, yeah, Samuel, Samuel, like what it's speak, for your servant hears. That is because I spent so much of my life running from my calling, running from the Lord, running from the things that I was supposed to be doing. And my parents named all their kids biblical names, and I was very specifically named after Samuel. My older sister is Elizabeth. My younger sister is Hannah. And so I mean, I have a Christmas ornament from the year I was born that somebody made for me with First Samuel 3:10 on it. Like
You didn't have a
that's where
choice.
my name came from, and so that's my life verse, and I take it very seriously now, as opposed to, I didn't really consider it when I was younger or anything, but in the last almost 10 years now, it's become the thing that I have, um, kept around my neck, put on my forehead, that kind of speak for your servant hears. Like, I want to hear the Lord's voice. I want to be obedient. I want to know what it is that he wants me to do. And whether that is, I mean, most of the time, it's just the next step. It rarely ever is it the big picture. Usually it's just the next foot in front of the other, and that's totally fine. I'm fine living like that as long as I'm in obedience to him.
And that just leads into something I've learned from talking to so many people through this is God's hand on your shoulder. Um, we refer to that here a lot because it's easy when you're in the fight, when you're in the battle, when you're in the situation to not notice that. But then when you step back and your your story is a testimony to that. God knew you were going to need to know how to do all that stuff at some point. So that's why he put you with Kid Rock. That's why he put you in that situation. And now as you see where he's led you now, you could not have started that music conference. You could not have done that if you didn't have that that training. And you'd had no idea that that was going to matter at some point. But
Right.
God's hand was on your shoulder, and He guided you through that, and then He guided you here. Sometimes we try to shove it off, but but He's got a pretty good grip on us, and that's one of the coolest things. That's why I love hearing the stories about people, because then you can sit back and you can see where they didn't know they were listening, they didn't know that God was guiding them, but part of their heart, part of their soul, part of their mind was still open to it, and he took you to where you are right now, and that's just I just love that.
Absolutely. Even in my brokenness, even in my being lost and disobedient, he still was there. He still was guiding. He still was protecting and providing. And so it's it's truly amazing, and it's humbling, and it's incredible. I love the strange, funny, mysterious, weird ways that the Lord works.
Yeah,
It's that is one of my true joys in life is seeing those just unexpected and things that we find odd, and the Lord works through them. I love that.
yeah, it's a wonderful walk. And before we jump into one of your most recent songs here, we have a little tradition here. We call it, as I mentioned in the show beforehand, my youngest son Matthew is profoundly autistic, and 9 seconds means something to him. So we've actually kind of changed the name a little bit. We used to call it Matthew's 9 seconds of wisdom, but people felt like I was going to time them. So now so now we call it Matthew's 9-ish seconds of wisdom. So if you just want to give something out there, just drop some advice, that a little wisdom on folks before we jump into your song.
Matthew, there is nothing that you cannot do with the Holy Spirit. Trust in Him, be obedient to Him, seek Him, listen to Him. Whatever struggles you have will not hold you back to accomplishing His will if you are in Him.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you, Sam. Now let's talk about Pale Horse. Where I mean, it people are going to be blessed and blown away by it, because my interpretation of it, it comes from a place of concern. It comes from a place of what's going on here. So I'll let you tell the story.
Well, so Pale Horse is definitely an admonishment, very specifically to my own church, and it's kind of like I'll circle back here in just a sec, but um, it's kind of opening the floodgates for a bunch of other music. I have a ton of stuff written, and the stuff that I have released, I have is music that I would consider to be relatively inoffensive. But the next stuff, the thing that the Lord has put on my heart is actually, I have a full record written about addiction, and it's a lot heavier. It's a lot rawer. It's a lot more raw. It's a lot realer, but it's still Christian music. But I mean, it's not necessarily going to sound like Christian music, and it may offend some people, but it's there's this whole story arc. Anyways, Pale Horse was kind of like one of the very beginnings of this kind of concept about writing some more real stuff. So, like I said, my father has been the pastor of our church for 37 years. My father is one of the most incredible godly men I have ever met. Like I said, he was an attorney beforehand, and so he preaches in a very, very logical. I call him a thinking man's preacher. Like he lays everything. He's a teacher. He has that like rabbi, like aura about him. He can break anything down for you and like explain it to a 6-year-old. He just he's a thinking man's preacher, and so he is preaching the gospel in a truly phenomenal way. But this church is getting old, and I feel like he has laid a foundation in our church of service. And now part of my calling and ministry is with this foundation that he has laid to go out with this core group that have been there and really affect change in our community. Like, I am all about the community that is around this building because that is what's closest to it. So the church itself has dwindled, has gotten older, but those who are there are extremely mature and strong Christians. And so it's like, guys, now is the time. We have been prepared for this. We have been taught. We have everything. We have been given every single tool. Now is the time to go out and deploy it, because if we just sit here, this building will crumble around us. And if we just expect everything to be done for us, then it's, we will all just die away and people will scatter. But with the gifts and the talents that the Holy Spirit has given to us, if we mobilize this, if we get out and we move, the Lord is going to do awesome things. And he already is. Like, I already see the things that he is doing. And so it's really I wrote that song probably 2 years ago as I was in my undergraduate program at Moody. I just started preaching at the church. I just kind of started this concept of, I feel like the Lord is calling me to take this over when my father dies, because he will die. Like, this is his calling. This is his passion. He loves it. He's battling cancer, but he still preaches every Sunday. He still runs Bible study. Like, he loves it. And so I support him in that. So I'm the janitor at the church. I'm the secretary at the church. I'm an associate pastor at the church. And it's very, like, everybody kind of sees the writing on the wall that, like, this is the direction that we are headed. And so I wrote that song roughly 2 years ago to my church, like, hey, get on board, because we're things are going to change. Like, we are getting ready to mobilize. And but I also felt that there were a lot of especially small older churches out there that were kind of in this same, like, we have a transitional plan, like we it seems pretty clear that this is what the Lord's calling us to do, unless there's, unless I'm reading this wrong, or it's going to have like a major shift, at some point, which is possible. But there's a lot of older churches that, you have resources of prayer warriors, of people who are willing to get out into the community, and you're just not deploying them. We gotta get up and go out and make disciples. And so, I mean, Gen Z is on fire.
Yeah.
They need mentors. They need the spiritually mature to walk alongside them. They need the family atmosphere, the support, that I mean, there's nothing wrong with big churches, but small churches are family, and it's a lot easier to make those interpersonal connections. It's a lot easier to disciple. It's a lot easier to find spiritual maturity, I think, in those close knit small churches. And so that's the whole thing about the song is we've had a great run of it for the last 75 years, but now is the time to mobilize and to get out there to serve our communities and go make disciples. So that was
And
kind of
it is a song that, I mean, churches need to hear. I mean, we're constantly hearing about how there's a resurgence now because of Gen Z, exactly like you said. But it's the small churches that built the foundation. And if they disappear, the foundation disappears. And I really liked how you put it, is that the Gen Zs, with all their fire, which is wonderful, but they need somebody standing next to them going, okay, we're going to get you through this together. We're going to do
right.
this together.
This is a marathon. It's not a sprint.
No, we're gonna carry each other, and that's why when I talk to the younger artists and I see that fire and excitement, I get so excited, but then it's like, okay, that's gonna wear off, and you have to have a foundation, and that's exactly what this song Pale Horse talks about. And I'm really glad that I found it, and I've been sending it to certain pastors. I don't know how they're receiving it, but
Yeah,
I've been sending it out there.
yeah, is kind
I haven't
of
heard back yet.
Well, and that's I like I said in the beginning, like the whole point of this is to build those relationships. Like I don't feel like I write the music so people can be like, I love the song. It's so great. It makes me feel wonderful. Like I write the music because it's what's on my heart. And sometimes those are like ugly, or they're not easy to say, or whatever. And like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if the song goes viral. Like I honestly, like, that has nothing to do with it. But if a few pastors hear it and are like galvanized, or like, you know what, that kicked me in the pants, man, that's everything. That's everything.
And that's what hopefully this will do. Sam, it has been an absolute pleasure to get to know you and meet you, and I really hope we can keep an open communication. And anytime you got something new coming out, just let us know, and we'll have you back on to talk about it, because your story is so real.
Absolutely, I appreciate that so much, Roger. And just be aware, like you will be careful what you wish for. I have this daily devotion that I send out to over 150 people, and I think every single podcast host that I have been on gets it. Like, I maintain, when I say I'm in this for relationships, I mean that. I'm not a one hit wonder in terms of like connecting. I we will continue to stay connected and to talk about the gospel and talk about what the Lord is doing in our lives. If that's something you're interested in, brother, you you got it here.
All right, and we will definitely, as soon as we're done here, I will shoot you all that information, because I do need to have that in my life, Sam. So here, Sam from the Normandies, and here is the Normandies Pale Horse. Thank you so much, Sam.
Thank you.